Why is it that the Europeans were the ones who colonized the world and not the other way around? Lately, I've been seeing these videos of people trying to explain why the Europeans were able to successfully colonize by chalking it up to things like luck or chance or disease resilience, but this doesn't strike at the heart of the issue as to why they went out and colonized in the first place. So how and why did it happen? Well, it can be easily summed up into three things: resource scarcity, geography, and the European spirit. First things first, you must understand the nature of the founding fathers of Europe, which are the Proto-Indo-European peoples, also known as the Aryans. These are a nomadic people from the Eurasian steppe who domesticated animals and lived as pastoralists. This means three things. The high consumption of animal products like meat and dairy combined with the harsh conditions of the steppe led to taller, stronger, more robust humans who were also more disease resilient. That is because animals carry disease, and living amongst these animals in close proximity meant that these people developed immunities to these diseases that the farming and hunter-gatherer communities did not have. Point B, the domestication of the horse allowed for widespread mobility, and it was used as a high-speed weapon of war, which allowed these taller, stronger, more robust humans to easily overwhelm and overpower all of the other communities that they interacted with. And whoever didn't die by the sword or spear typically died by the spread of disease because they were unaccustomed to living in close proximity to domesticated livestock. This is exactly what happened in the Americas, by the way. Point C, the vast spread of Proto-Indo-European culture and genetics throughout all of Europe created an entire continent of people who are warlike, disease-resilient, and addicted to conquest. Which leads me to main point number 2, which is geography. The entire continent of Europe is essentially one giant peninsula with 100 other smaller peninsulas, and in the middle they are separated by vast mountain ranges and river systems, which again means three things. Point A, these people never solidified into one vast empire, no matter how much Rome may have made it seem like it. Unlike the Chinese empires in Asia or the Islamic caliphates in the Middle East, the constantly changing and incredibly difficult terrain of Europe made it so that no one power could ever conquer and overwhelm the entire landmass. The mountains and the rivers and the forests created natural barriers that separated populations and allowed them to thrive under their own sovereignty and continue to war with each other. Point B, this constant warring and rivalry essentially created a military arms race, which meant that from small tribes all the way up to empires, military superiority was the main focus of any growing European population. And the only way to maintain military dominance over your neighbors is to innovate and create new technologies and new ideas. Point C, what allowed the Europeans to innovate so quickly was the long system of rivers and the expansive trade networks found throughout Europe. Long rivers means excellent navigational skills, and long trade networks means resources from all around the world. Like gunpowder. Gunpowder is not a European invention, but as soon as they got their hands on it, they built better cannons, better firearms, and better artillery than anybody else in the world because of their constant need to innovate to survive. Finally, number 3, resource scarcity. Point A, Europe has fewer natural exotic resources than Africa, Asia, or the Americas, which means that the underpopulated regions of Africa and the Americas were less likely to war with each other over these resources, while in Europe there was constant fighting. Finally, when the Ottoman Empire blocked trade routes from Europe to the east by land, they had to innovate. This newfound resource scarcity caused the Europeans to develop advanced shipbuilding and navigational techniques that allowed them to go and acquire these resources by sea. To add to this, Europe's population rebounded and grew exponentially after the Black Death, which meant that they were now becoming overpopulated. The ships that were once built for resource acquisition are now being used for exploration and conquest to find new lands to settle. Colonization also became a release valve for excess ambition, from second sons without an inheritance to travelers seeking fame and merchants seeking wealth. And all of that is why when the Europeans landed in places like the Americas, Africa, and Asia, they were not only militarily and technologically more advanced than the indigenous populations, but they also unknowingly spread disease amongst the indigenous population because of their livestock and horses. Now you not only understand how the Europeans colonized, but also why it was the Europeans and not somebody else. Hope this makes sense.